Hello, welcome back to this second part of Chapter 5, which is social media platforms and social networking sites. So we're going to pick it up here with this slide. So again, just to make sure everybody's understanding, when you're thinking about marketing on these different platforms, make sure you have your goals in mind, what your measurable objectives are going to be. You need to have a good solid plan in place before you start putting things out there. Otherwise, you may just be wasting your time. You don't know if you're reaching the right audience or not. You don't know if it's the right time of day, because then a whole bunch of other posts may come after yours and they may not ever see whatever you're putting out there. So make sure you do some really good research in terms of deciding which platform you want, and is that where your audiences are hanging out. And so, examples would be this: if you're doing some kind of business to business type of marketing, then you probably want to do something kind of more professional and look at LinkedIn. If it's business to consumer, then maybe you want to look at Facebook, it's most popular, or some other platform where those audience members are going to be hanging out. So if you're doing some kind of business to consumer marketing, make sure that whatever you're posting is what your book calls share worthy, something that the users find useful. You don't want to just be posting random things that they don't find useful. They'll know what you're trying to do, and then you'll lose them. They'll go elsewhere. So what you're then looking for is somehow to make it easy for them to share whatever content you're putting out there, or to become fans of your brand and what you're putting out there. If you want to put out images, then look for image media sites. So something like Instagram would be helpful if it's where people spend most of their time. Facebook. It also depends on what country you're in. Make sure you're looking at that as well. And so you can see from this table where in the US the highest number of users are. And so we have Facebook, what percentage of the population is that, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, so on. Also keep in mind for Pinterest, it tends to be a site where a lot of women might hang out. So if your target audience happens to be a high proportion of males, then that may not be the best place for you to be marketing solely. So maybe you want to use Pinterest in conjunction with something else. On this slide, we have some guidelines if you're going to do the business to consumer marketing. So the first thing you want to do is create an account. Don't create a profile, because it's not your profile that you're marketing. Right? Create a page that's for your business, and then start to allow people to follow you or become fans. But again, you don't want to have any personal information out there. You want to then customize the page so that it looks like it's your company's brand, but you want to have something a little bit different from the website. So think about if you had a small business and let's say it's a restaurant, and so the restaurant has a website page, but then they have a Facebook page. So how are the two going to be different? You don't want them to be exactly the same. So the Facebook page, you're going to be a little bit more engaging with your audience. It's not just to post content out there. You want to post things that they're going to like and become sharing that information. So I'm thinking, if you're a small restaurant thing or a sandwich shop, maybe you talk about how your sandwiches are made, or where the bread comes from. It gets people interested in the topic, and maybe they share the information, and that'll make them fans of the brand, and then that'll bring other people in who want to see similar content, or show them how to do something different with food. It has to be different than your website, or they're not going to be that interested in it. And so you want to make sure that you update the content. There's nothing worse than going to a site and it's the same that it was 6 months ago. People will then just say, well, they're not keeping up with it, and why should I come back? And so you run the risk of them unfriending you and never coming back if you don't replace that content. The trick is figure out how often you're going to need to replace that content so people will feel that the site is somewhat refreshed and that you are paying attention to what your audience is posting. You may also want to check and see what your competitors are doing, or think of a competitor that is very similar to you. It may not even be in the same geographical location, but you think that they do a really good job on their social media site. Maybe you can borrow some of the things that they're doing, especially if you're a small restaurant. Right now, if you're a big chain, that might be a little different. But still, you want to look and see what your competitors are doing in terms of how they're using the social media platforms in order to engage their customers and to further promote their brand. Some other things you can do when you're doing business to consumer marketing is you can use a vanity URL. And what that is if you have a long name for your link, you can shorten that down to something that's easier to remember, easier to put in a link in your pages, your web pages, so to speak, so that people can click on that. You may also want to think about running some kind of contest or offering discounts and change those discounts up periodically so it forces or gets people to come back to your site in order to see if there are any different discounts for different items. You also need to think about if your marketing is after groups or not. And so some platforms allow you to do groups, some don't. And so with Facebook, if you will, they don't actually allow any blogging. They do allow some groups, but if you're trying to get a list of those groups, it could be a problem. Right. It also helps if you understand how you can use the demographics of your tool, so to speak. So you can see here this last bullet says Facebook allows for different kinds of demographics that you might be looking at. Male, female, range of salaries, location, those sort of things. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. Instead of doing business to consumer marketing, I'd like to talk about business to business marketing. And so with business to business marketing, the highest rated platform would be LinkedIn. So as you can see here, 81% of business to business marketers use LinkedIn. And so here it's to help get those interactions between different business professionals. And things are taken a little bit more seriously. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, I would suggest that you start one and start practicing using it before you graduate. So the first thing you need to do is complete that member profile and put in as much information as possible, or detail I should say. And so the more detail that you have, that hopefully will lead to more connections. Okay. I would also suggest that once you're on a certain platform, you keep up with the different features that they come out with all the time. A lot of times they will change the end user license agreement. They will also change the policies on your privacy. And so you need to keep up with that and also think about how that's going to affect your audience. And so they have InMail. You can also, we talked about earlier, you could have a subscription to LinkedIn, which is more of a premium product. And so this paid account will allow you better ways to contact other professionals. So the messaging tends to be a little bit easier. You can use introductions to expand your network. You can get people to comment on your skills, so to speak. And so learn how to use LinkedIn in a professional way. Some other useful features in LinkedIn is that you can have groups. They can be private or they can be open. And so just keep in mind that every profession or industry probably has a group, and you may want to try and join those groups. And this will allow you to build quick contacts so that you could get your information to them without being overtly trying to advertise. If you do tend to interact on LinkedIn, then you probably want to have a personal account that you do that out of rather than the company account or the brand name account. So if you're interested in doing this, I would suggest you go out and find some tech tutorials. You might even buy some trade books that are on LinkedIn that show you how to best use it and get the most out of it. I would caution you a little bit. The last time I looked on some LinkedIn things is that there was some concern about accepting users into your account or linked to your account because banks were starting to use this and find that people with poor credit history that were linked to other people, it might affect their credit standing as well. And the idea being that if you're linked to someone or several people that have poor credit, then you chances are would have poor credit as well, and that would drive your credit score down. Haven't seen much about it lately, but you never know. So, I just give you that as a caution if you go out there and try and do a LinkedIn account and then try and get a whole bunch of new members or contacts, if you will. That may not be the best thing. Then there's also with business marketing, we can also use Google Plus. And so that's been around for 6 years now, and so it's starting to grow. But it's not as popular as Facebook. And so it's probably for smaller brand communities, perfect for small businesses. And it's just not used as much as Facebook is, but they do provide a lot of analysis that may help you in what you're trying to do. They have Google Analytics that's used on websites now, and so that may transfer over into the Google Plus area. Next thing I want to talk about is what your book calls white label social networks. And I like to think of this as software that you can either purchase in the cloud or install on your own computers that will mimic the capabilities of Facebook. So think of it as a private network that allows social media content, if you will. And so what this will do is that you could do this within your organization and everybody can set up contacts there. So you could set up similar groups. The groups could share information. You'd have to have policies in place because you may not want to have certain types of information out there or everybody to know about it. But it's useful for getting information out to everybody in the organization. Different groups who are working on similar projects and things could share information that brings everybody up to speed a little faster. It also gets people involved more, and they feel more of a following towards the group and towards the organization. So it could be something that's very good for establishing a camaraderie within your organization. And then this could be used to help build better employee satisfaction. Some other names you may see it as is enterprise social networks or social business. And so more and more companies are using that, and it allows, I guess, the companies to also monitor that a little bit better instead of being like on Facebook where they could have, those users could have certain privacy settings where the company couldn't see what was being posted or said about the product or brand of the company. So the question becomes, what's the future of social networks? And so we've seen that, since 2005, they've taken off. Businesses have now learned how to use them very effectively for either getting their advertising out or getting brand awareness out or increasing loyalty. But the future may be to be a niche of some type, and that is to go after smaller groups. And so, as the book says here, the age of social selling has arrived. And so lastly, some best practices for social media marketing then is use those previous chapters we talked about, develop clear goals and objectives, understand and monitor those objectives, especially the metrics of what you're using to measure those by. Understand your audience, make sure you know which platforms they're using, when they're using them. Think about how you need to communicate with that audience in the most appropriate way. And then think about, what they're searching for. So keep search in mind. And what I mean by that is think about what keywords they're using when they're doing their search. And that'll give you some insights into what they're looking and how you might communicate with them and provide some useful information for them to keep wanting to come back to your site. And so that ends this chapter.